growing up, every time that happened, it'd be like, okay, great, thanks, Dad. I don't know what I'm going to do with um, this Charles Schwab stuff, but he would say, or my parents would say, you're going to be glad that we did this someday. Someday you are going to thank us for this. And, like I said, it was just a running joke in the family. Okay, whatever you say.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Creating Cash Flow, where today I am super stoked to share with you an interview with Ryne Williams from Retire with Ryne. He has an incredible YouTube channel that I will link down below, and I get to pick his brain about dividend investing and different books and kind of how he's prepared his entire life to be a dividend investor. Ryne is just a stellar guy, and we make a lot of comparisons between investing and working out. So if you're into working out, hopefully it's pretty applicable. But either way, there's tons of good content, so be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to watch the video all the way until the end because there are tons of nuggets scattered throughout the entire show. Thanks again, Ryne, for coming on, and let's jump into the interview.
Hey, Dallin, what's up, man?
Wow, this is amazing. I got the exact studio set up.
Yeah, the full treatment. How are you doing, man?
Doing very well. How are you? For those that don't know, your channel is great. I know you post 2 videos a week and you also do a live show on Friday and you have a newsletter. And I was just curious from a fellow YouTuber perspective, how much time do you invest a week into YouTube?
Um, that's such a good question. It really varies week to week, just depending on the videos that I'm making. But this is technically my full-time job. So I'm fortunate enough at this point, knock on wood, hoping it keeps going this way. I'm fortunate enough to do this and only this. So I really do treat it like a full-time job. Between everything, the channel and the newsletter, it probably is close to 40 hours per week, I would say. Um, and then per video, if we break that down on a per video basis, I would say on average, I'm maybe 5 to 7 hours per video, from coming up with the topic to scripting to working on the title and thumbnail, which is something I've been trying to spend more time with and get better at, to shooting the video to editing the whole kit and caboodle. It's probably somewhere in that range. So it's quite a trek sometimes.
No, I totally believe it. And it shows, like, your videos are really, really well put together. They're
Thank
really
you, man.
solid. I'm
Thank you.
also curious. Okay, so I didn't realize this was your full-time gig as of right
Yeah.
now. When did that change and what did you used to do before that?
Yeah, so I went full time with this back in October of last year, which coincided perfectly with my move to Las Vegas. So I'm originally from Northern California, around Sacramento, and as soon as I moved to Vegas, I pretty much went full time with this. And prior to this, I worked in this space somewhat. I was doing digital marketing. And so I worked with an agency who, has clients. So we would manage all of their social media marketing every single month. And so that was my day job prior to going full time with this. And then, I moved here and just kind of just started doing this and only this. And I didn't know how long it was going to last either. I mean, I didn't plan on going full time with this when I did, but it ended up working out that way. And so once I moved here and was getting settled, I just told myself, I'm just gonna, because I was making some money from the channel, not a whole lot. It's pretty rough the first few months going full time. But I told myself, I'm just gonna give it a shot from October to December. If by the end of the year I don't see progress with this, or if by the end of the year it's not kind of heading in the direction I want, where it looks like it could be a sustainable full time gig, then I'll go back and get some sort of job. But the good thing is, if I was to do that, just based on the income I was making from the channel, worst case scenario, I could go and get honestly just any sort of job. It could have been even minimum wage, just to kind of fill in the gaps with my income, which is sweet. It almost felt like being semi-retired.
Yeah.
Um, but fortunately, those few months, every single month was better than the last. And so come the end of December into January, I was like, I'm just going to keep rocking with it. And it's been, what, I guess 7 months now or so that I've been doing it full time, and I love it, man. I just, I'm knocking on wood here, just really hoping that I can keep doing it because it's so much fun.
So how long before you started getting a paycheck that you're like, this is sustainable? Was it those 5 months?
Um, Honestly, probably at the turn of the year, something happened. I mean, from October to December, I saw progress. It was still pretty tight financially. Luckily, I had savings, so I'm okay. Um, but I saw progress. The channel was growing quicker. The videos were getting more views. The income was growing along with that. Just things were picking up, which I think came as a result of just being able to put all my attention into this. And then December was a really good month. For me, it was really good. Um, and then January was better. It just every month seems like it's been better than the last for the most part. Um, and yeah, it's just afforded me to be able to continue doing it. So I'm just hoping to stay on that upward trajectory and just keep growing this thing, you
I
know.
love it. Very cool, man. Congratulations.
Thank you, man.
And then for those that don't know you, you specifically focus on dividend stocks and that sweet, sweet cash flow. And so what I'm wondering is, when are you coming out with that sweet, sweet cash flow t-shirt?
At some point, yeah, at some point it'd be fun to do some merch or something like that. One thing at a time, man. I kind of like you said earlier, I've got the videos, I have the live stream every week, I have the newsletter. And since I started doing any of this just about 2.5 years ago, I've just kind of trying to been I've tried to just keep do it. I've tried to just do one thing at a time, get the channel right, make sure I'm doing good with the videos. Then I introduced the live stream, make sure I'm in a good groove with that. Everything's working okay. Then I added the newsletter. Um, then I just started doing Patreon last month. And so I'm just trying to expand it one thing at a time. But at some point, I'll do some fun merch stuff. My live stream's called the Dividend Happy Hour.
Yeah.
And it's really funny to see people come. They'll actually come and bring cocktails and treat it like an actual happy hour, just a little hangout session. And so in addition to like t-shirts or something like that, I think it'd be really cool to come out with stuff that maybe would coincide with that sort of branding, like a margarita glass or a martini glass or just I don't know, fun things like that. There's so many fun ways to take it, but yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Very cool, man. So I guess before you went full time, what's your background? Like, did you go to college? What did you study? Like, where'd you grow up?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Northern California.
Yeah.
Prior to moving to Las Vegas, where I'm at now, I was living in Sacramento. But I'm originally from a small town just a little bit north of Sacramento, and I pretty much lived there my entire life. Very small town. I did go to college after high school. I went to community college for a few years. Went to the University of Oregon for a little bit, and then I came back and went to Sacramento State, just state college in Sacramento, obviously. But I didn't finish. I altogether I went to college for maybe 5 or 6 years, and I was never able to finish. And I was studying like kinesiology, um, physiology, that sort of thing. So outside of investing or whatever, I'm pretty into health and fitness. That's been about 12 years now. I've just really been into working out and staying active, stuff like that. So I was going to school for that sort of stuff. But like I said, I ended up not finishing college. And by the
Would the
time,
credits not really transfer from one college to the other? Is that like part of the issue?
yeah, that was a big thing. So going from community college to Oregon, some of those credits didn't transfer. So I had to retake some classes I had already taken. Then once I went from Oregon to Sacramento State, same exact thing. And so by the time I got to Sac State, I'd spent a couple semesters going there. I don't know. I was starting to feel pretty discouraged about the whole college thing. And the more I thought about it, the more it seemed to me that the stuff that I really wanted to do in life, I really wasn't gonna have to have a degree. Because at the time, my plan was like, my dream was like to own a gym. I'm gonna own a gym and just work out all day, spend all day there. And so I was like, I can do that without a degree. I had a plan essentially. But then in the midst of that, I with one of my buddies, one of my old workout partners actually, um, I'd started. This is like my first entrepreneurial venture. I started a fitness based apparel company, and so I kind of started once I stopped going to college, I kind of just started working a lot on that and saw really good growth with that. Um, and doing that, I gave me experience on social media because prior to that, I really hadn't done. I didn't have Facebook or Instagram. I had MySpace back in the day, but that wasn't around, obviously. Um, but so in doing that fitness clothing brand, I grew a presence on social media just for myself on Instagram and also for that business. And then got to a point where people would ask me, "How did you do this?" or "How did you grow?" And so people just started asking me about social media stuff. And then I kind of saw an opportunity to make money doing that. So I turned that into a business, and that ended up leading into the day job that I had before I stopped doing that and did YouTube full time. And so that day job I'd had for probably close to 4 years. And then maybe maybe 6 months to a year before I stopped doing that, I'd started my YouTube channel. And then, that segued into me doing YouTube full time. So one thing's always kind of led to the next thing, if that makes sense.
No, that's very cool. Is your clothing brand still alive then? Is it still out there?
It's still out there. I ended up just signing it over to the guy that I was working on it with. It's called West Coast Muscle. Yeah, you can Google it. It's westcoastmuscle.com. And so it's still active. I don't think he does as much with it these days, but it's still around.
Yeah.
Not it's worth checking out. It's kind of fun. I think I'm still on the website or just whatever, but that was a lot of fun doing
Yeah.
that.
No, very cool. And then on the fitness side, I mean, I've seen a bunch of your videos, but I've never known that you were big into fitness. What type of fitness are you into? What do you do?
Um, so I the I guess I would have to say, if anything, more bodybuilding type stuff. And that's kind of what the whole clothing brand was about. So bodybuilding really became popular here on the West Coast. You think Gold's Gym at Venice Beach. And so the brand was kind of most definitely inspired by that and that time period in bodybuilding. They call it the golden age of bodybuilding. And I'm sure I can tell by the look on your face, the exact period,
Yeah.
something about that. And we're talking, for those of you who don't know, we're talking guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno. You think pumping iron, that sort of generation. So it was really inspired by that. And I wouldn't say I'm a diehard bodybuilder or anything. I've never competed. I've never dieted down to be that lean to step on stage and do it. But that would be the type of lifting that I would do. I've,
Yeah.
I've dabbled a little bit in powerlifting, but it's just not a little bit in Olympic lifting too. But it's just not really my thing.
Yep. No, very cool though, man. I'm big. I love working out. I'm big into that too. So,
I
and
was
I,
going to say, I think your shirt, correct me if I'm wrong, is Aesthetic Revolution. Is that what that? Yeah.
yep. Yeah,
Uh
that
huh.
is. They're like one of my favorite brands right now. So,
Yeah. They're legit.
yeah, they're legit. Their fabric quality, everything is incredible.
Mm.
And one of the things I love is their clothes are almost like art pieces because every single time they have like a design number on every single piece. And so it keeps like racking up. So I have a piece from years and years and years ago, which is in like the early 100s. So like design number like 121, I think it is. So now they're up at, I think they're in the 600 or 700. So you like don't want to get rid of old clothes from them because you're like, this is like it's a statement piece, and as they grow, as their brand grows, it's kind of
Yeah.
something fun to hold on to.
Exactly. I remember they started popping up soon after like Gymshark started becoming popular.
Yeah.
So they've been around a long time. Actually, fun fact, if you go to the Bellagio here in Vegas, the hotel, the Bellagio, if you go into their spa, which leads to their, nobody probably cares about this, but we're on the subject. If you go to
Yeah.
like to the gym in the hotel, they have a whole boutique that just sells Aesthetic Revolution clothes.
No way.
Kind of a fun fact, yeah.
See, I wish I knew that. I was just in Vegas for the Taylor Swift concert.
Oh, very nice, man. Yeah, that
So
was really recently, actually, huh?
yeah, that was just about a month ago.
Dang, man. You should have
Yeah.
hit me up.
I know, I know. This was before I was thinking of going this direction with the channel. I wish I would have.
Yeah. Well, if you ever make it back out here, we'll definitely get together.
Cool. No, that'd be fun, man. So I guess back towards investing. How long have you been investing?
I've been investing like seriously for myself and on my own since I was about 26. So maybe about maybe about 3 years now, actually. And I think I started the October 2021, so like a few months before the pandemic hit and all the craziness in the market started happening. Um, and but prior to that, so I always tell this story. So prior to that, my my family, my parents are pretty big into investing, stocks and real estate and stuff like that. So I was pretty fortunate to be exposed to it from a pretty young age. And when I was maybe 12 or 13, my parents made custodian accounts or custodial accounts, which is basically an account for a kid that's managed by your parents. Um, they made custodial accounts for myself and my brothers. And so from the time I was like 12 or 13, every Christmas, every birthday, anytime there was a gift that needed to be given, it wasn't Grand Theft Auto, it wasn't Call of Duty or anything like that that I might have been into when I was a teenager. It was money from my Charles Schwab account. So, and then at the time, this is kind of the running joke in the family at the time, growing up. Every time that happened, it'd be like, okay, great, thanks, Dad. I don't know what I'm going to do with um, this Charles Schwab stuff, but he would say, or my parents would say, you're going to be glad that we did this someday. Someday you are going to thank us for this. And, like I said, it was just a running joke in the family. Okay, whatever you say. But then it really did hit me like a ton of bricks when I was about 26.
Mhm.
Um, and in hindsight, I was really glad to have been exposed to that when I was younger. And so I guess technically I've had exposure to it since I was a kid, but it's not something I really took seriously until just a couple of years ago.
Wow, I have not heard of that, but that's super, super cool. What were they investing in for you? Or were you kind of like, were you picking stocks with them or anything? Or they were kind of like, look, we're just putting money in here and it's going to grow.
Kind of, sort of. So, when we would get money deposited to our Charles Schwab account, my dad would basically pull us into his office at the house, and we would just kind of look over his shoulders. He tells us, "Okay, we're going to buy some Berkshire Hathaway. We're going to buy SCHD. I think Sirius XM Radio is going to be a good stock." And so we weren't really picking them, but my dad did his best to keep us in the loop and try and show us this is what we're doing and try and explain this is why we're doing it. But like I said, it probably when I was that young went in one ear and out the other. Um, but now, like, man, I think about it. If I could go back and be 16 again when I just had my first job, knowing what I know now, I would go back and put all of the money that I made at my, first whatever jobs in my teens and 20s, just put all that into my portfolio. I can't help but think if I was to do that and if I was to take it seriously from a younger age, which 26 is still pretty young, I think, in the grand scheme of things. But
Yeah.
even getting a 10-year head start when you're 16, just putting whatever money you can away. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I can't even think about what that'd look like now. It'd be crazy.
So if there's a 16-year-old listening to this, what would you tell them to do?
Oh my gosh, just start. Go get a job. Don't maybe go to the high school parties every once in a while, but make some money, put it all into your put start investing in stocks. Just, you probably don't know exactly where to put it. That's fine. Just put it into SCHD or VU or some ETF like that. Just make it simple, but start stacking that cash flow because when you are 25, 26, which is still very young, but 10 years older than you are today, you will not believe what that small amount started that young will turn into someday. It's ridiculous. So, you'll be so glad that you did it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I have a kind of a crazy story. It's kind of a gamble. But at
Yeah.
the time I was a freshman in college and I was trying to study for finals and I just couldn't focus. And so I was like, all I could think about was like making money. And I was like, I look around and everybody is on an Apple computer in the library studying. And I'm like, Apple's not going anywhere. Like if anything, Apple's just getting more popular. So I actually had to call my mom to get access to my bank account. And I went and took all of my money. It was like 8 grand. And I put it all into Apple stock, like every single dollar. And then I actually lived in Brazil for 2 years. I served a mission for my church. And so
Mm,
I didn't even think about it, anything, for 2 years. And then when I came back, that had like quadrupled in value. And like, that was like a huge gamble, and that was lucky. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. But that's when I like, money felt so fake to me, because I was like, well, I didn't do anything and my money just quadrupled. Like, this was, it's awesome coming back being like 22 years old, having all of that, newfound
yeah.
money for doing nothing. But it's a good way to get ahead.
So how did you know to put it in stocks? I mean,
So
yeah.
I kind of like you, I had exposure to stocks from like an early age. So like in the summer growing up, I went to a seminar with my cousin and my brother and our parents, and it was like a stock trading seminar.
Mm,
And so we just went to that. I learned, I listened. I was super young, so it was mostly going over my head. But one thing I remember is this guy was like, just find a company that you know and you love and you believe in, and invest in it. And
yeah.
he's like, because you have to be able to follow what the company's doing. And if you're not like super into stock trading, you'll naturally follow companies that you like and know. So he was talking about how his neighbor like went and invested in Budweiser because he was drinking, he liked to drink Budweiser, and that was kind of his thing. Then he also was like, I just like to talk to my kids. Like, I show them the stock market goes up and down, up and down. So like when it goes up at the top, they're like, what's it gonna do? And then the kids are like, it's gonna go down. And then when it's down, they're like, what's it gonna do? It's gonna go up. So like, he was just teaching it at like such a basic and simple level that it kind of hit with me.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you ever did this, but I would go through, they had these like fake trading accounts where you could go create an account and you could put like $100,000 in there, and then you could just trade like as if you were following and trading on the market. And I would do that, and I'd compete with my cousin. He was probably better at it than me, but just like I felt like whenever I invested overall, I had big gains, like it was going up and up and up.
Mm,
So that's where I was just like, finally, I was like, okay, I want to make money. I don't know, like, I want to do something other than school. And so that's when I went and just put it all into Apple, which again, looking back, I probably wouldn't have done that, knowing what I know now, but luckily it took off. And that was at the time when, um, I think they had like kicked Steve Jobs off the board or whatever, and the stock just like shot up dramatically. I can't remember the exact timing, but that it was like the 2009 2010 era, and then owned it for a few years there. And I should have just held on to it, but I sold off a lot of it and then kept some of it. But that
yeah.
was that story.
Man, that is pretty wild. And it could have gone one of two ways, right? Putting all of your eggs into that one basket. It was either going to go how it did and it worked out very well, or it was going to go the other direction. Um, but that was pretty perceptive of you, man, to be in the library looking around and seeing what people are using and furthermore what people are spending their money on and making a decision based off that. It's kind of like the Peter Lynch approach. I don't know if you've read One Up on Wall Street or familiar with Peter Lynch, but
Yeah,
um,
I haven't.
very famous investor. He managed something called the Magellan Fund, which is one of the most successful, I think, mutual funds in the history of investing. It was a Fidelity fund, but that was pretty much his mo. He wrote the book One Up on Wall Street and talked a lot about it. It's all about investing in what you know and just kind of looking around. We as individuals who are not hedge fund analysts or super financial people, kind of the everyday person has an advantage because they can go to the supermarket and see what people are buying, or they can look around in the library and see what computers or phones people have, and use that to do exactly what you did and think, investing in that sort of company that a lot of people are using and probably will continue to use even more so in the future, probably would be a good investment.
Yeah.
So good stuff, man.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. So, I mean, yeah, I've heard of Peter Lynch. I haven't read that book, One Up on Wall Street. What other books do you recommend, or are you like an avid reader in like in the financial book space?
Um, I'm hit or miss with the financial books. I've read a few good ones. I have my little library behind me. I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a classic. I think anyone looking to kind of get their first exposure to some sort of financial book, I think that's a really good place to start because it definitely puts you in the right mindset to start investing. Um, so I'd highly recommend that one. Um, let's see. There's a book called Richer, Wiser, Happier by William Green, which is another really great book. It's basically his conversations with a ton of famous investors and a compilation of the takeaways and the way that they think about money and philosophy and life. It's a very simple, easy read, but I'd highly recommend it. Really enjoyable. What else we got here? There's The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I just finished reading that one. Really good book as well. And then the last one I'd have to recommend for those who are, who want to get into stock investing or are interested in this stuff. There's a biography on Warren Buffett just called Buffett by Roger Lowenstein. And that's a really good read as well. There's so many great books, but with the financial books, some of them are really dry and really dull.
Yeah.
And like The Intelligent Investor, for example, is a really popular book for investors, but it reads like a textbook. And it's one that, you should probably read at some point if you're going to get into this stuff, but don't make it your first book because it's gonna put you to sleep. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, for sure. Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. I love that,
Right.
and that leads me to another question I had for you, which your channel is strictly about dividend investing, and Robert Kiyosaki made a lot of money in real estate. And whenever I read that book, which I try and read it once a year, I pretty much I like get so excited about real estate investing. So do you invest in real estate, but you just don't talk about it on your channel? Or are you more of I strictly invest in dividend stocks?
I do. So I actually invest in real estate with my parents. I don't do it by myself. So together with my folks, which is kind of probably like them just keeping the training wheels on me, to be honest. But it's been fun. I've been able to learn a lot from doing it with them, and it's something fun that we can do together. But yeah, so I have a small real estate portfolio with them. We have one rental property, just a duplex, which is really cool, and that's in my hometown. And then we bought like a plot of land, really good location in my hometown as well. Um, but it's just those two properties right now, and I've kind of been looking more into expanding here in Las Vegas now that I'm here. But I'm still trying to learn the market and kind of get a feel for everything. So, long story short, yeah, I am somewhat into real estate. I do have a little bit of real estate exposure. But I will say dividend investing is really my bread and butter. And if I had to choose between the two, I'm much more interested in dividend stock investing for a few reasons too. I mean, for me, for me, it's not as complicated. I think that, well, I don't know if that's the right way to put it. For me, dividend stock investing it clicks more with me, I guess is a better way to put it. And I like that it's a more accessible way to invest for most people than real estate investing, because these days you can start investing in dividend stocks or ETFs with like any money that you have. You don't need to worry about a down payment like you do with real estate. You don't have to worry about getting financing. You just open up a brokerage account and get going, and you can kind of build it brick by brick. And so I do like that about investing. I like that it's more passive than real estate. You don't have to worry about some of the issues you have with real estate. And I know you can have property managers, and so that definitely helps take the edge off. But there's just certain things I like about dividend stock investing that real estate doesn't provide. But then on the other hand, there's things that I like about real estate that that I don't get with dividend stock investing. It's really cool to drive by a property that you actually own and see something physical, something tangible that you can touch. But then on the other hand, going back to the other hand, it's really cool to go through the Starbucks drive-through and know that I'm an owner of this business. So there's benefits to both. And when it comes to the individual out there deciding how they should invest or what they should invest in, man, I don't think you can go wrong either way. And I also think everyone kind of has their thing. And you also don't have to limit yourself to just one thing either. You could do both real estate and dividend stock investing. I know, kind of going back to Robert Kiyosaki, he hates stocks. He can't stand stocks. It's real estate and gold for him, and that's fine. That's worked well for him. But then there's other people like Warren Buffett whose stocks have worked pretty dang well. So everyone's got their thing. And I think you as the investor kind of need to find your place in all of this. One way or another, it's important to invest, right? I think that's the one thing we could all agree on is this is something that everyone should be doing. It's and you'll get this, Dallin. Like investing actually is a lot like working out. Not everyone likes to work out. Not everyone enjoys going to the gym or getting on the treadmill or tracking their macros or eating healthy. They like the results that come from it, but they don't exactly like doing it. And they also know it's an important thing to do. I think the same exact thing is true when it comes to investing. Not everyone's interested in this stuff, but it's a very essential thing that you need to do in your life. And if you start doing it, it might not feel good to put money into your Charles Schwab account or whatever. You'd rather get Grand Theft Auto, but at some point down the road, you're going to be glad that you did it. And it. So sorry to get tongue tied, but I just think there's a lot of parallels between the two.
No, I love that. And I couldn't agree more, especially when it comes to like incremental gains. Like you go to the
Mm,
gym and like this is an age old whatever, but it's like
yeah,
you do abs, you don't get a six pack, right? And maybe the next day you pay for it and your abs are sore, whatever. It's like it's very incremental gains. And the same thing is so true with investments, especially like me starting off small, super small. It'll be like, your dividend payout will be like 64 cents,
hmm,
and it's not that exciting to be honest. You're like, oh my gosh, was that worth like 64 cents? But then, you start, and I know you have an awesome dividend income tracker. But I use my own, but over the years, you start seeing how that adds up, and you've invested in a bunch of things, and like that $5 here and $12 there, it starts to add up to you.
yeah,
You have maybe it's only $500 or even less of passive income a year, but that's $500 you didn't have to do anything for, and it just takes time to just chip away at it. And I guess with that, do you like what are you like a big dollar cost averaging guy, or how do you look at investing?
yeah. I am. I personally invest every single week, and I'm a proponent for doing it on a regular basis, whether it's once a week. I know some people who put money into their account every single day. Um, but either way, one way or another, I'm a huge proponent for regular contributions to your portfolio. Whether it's once a week, once a month is also a great frequency. Do whatever frequency works for you, but I think it should be on a regular basis. It's just, dude, once again, going back to working out, you don't just go to the gym one day and you're done. It's something that you have to do repeatedly over a long period of time. And so the same, so once again, there's another crossover to working out. The same thing is true with investing. Whether it's once a week, once a month, just put some money into your account. These days, you can set it up so it's completely out of sight and out of mind. You can set it and forget it. There's really no excuse not to get started. There's really none.
No, 100%. What is your ideal amount that you can invest of like, say you make $10,000 a month? What
Yeah.
percentage of that do you want to be able to save to invest? Versus like, how do you break down your budget?
So me personally, or
Uh,
just
you can do
like
you
the
personally, but also like
universal,
a recommended breakdown of
yeah.
like, is it 10% of everything you make you invest? Like, is that like kind of the number?
Yeah, it's so tough to say because it's going to depend from person to person, right? Like myself, it's just myself and my fiance. We don't have kids or anything, so the amount that we're able to save and set aside is going to be different from someone who's got a full family and just, with that more expenses. But man, I would say a general rule of thumb, set aside the most amount that you can, really. And I personally set aside more than I personally set aside a larger percentage of my income, and I could probably still set aside more if I wanted to.
Mhm.
I probably should consider doing that. But I'm into this stuff, so I like investing more than less. And I also know that there's a reason behind that. It just the more that you invest, the closer that you can get to the ultimate goal, which is financial freedom. So It just depends how gung ho you are about getting there. But I would say if you have $10,000, if you're in my position and it's just yourself, your girlfriend, your fiance, your wife, no kids, not as many responsibilities, and you're making that amount per month, I would say there's no reason not to set aside $5,000 at least a month, maybe even six. If you're just two people, I don't know. I'm super easy to please. I just work out, I make my videos, I hang out with my lady and my cat, go out to dinner every once in a while, I'll grab some Chipotle, but I'm super easy. And but all that's to say, I don't think you need to spend a I think everyone can spend less money on the discretionary stuff than they realize. But a lot of people might not realize that they're spending so much money on that because a lot of people don't really budget, which is
Mhm.
probably a good first step. And I know I'm going off on a tangent, I apologize. But that's probably a good first step for a lot of people is to just figure out where your money's going to then figure out where you can cut back so you can have more to invest. And I've learned too, just from doing this, once you kind of get a taste for that passive income, once you start collecting those dividend checks, even if they're small, even if they're those 64 cents, you you start to the light bulb starts to go off in your head and you start to, at least this is how it happened for me. You start to understand, if I just can do more of this and allocate more towards this, these payments are going to be bigger than they are, a lot bigger than they are. And furthermore, if I just keep reinvesting that, that's just going to make things go even quicker. And then it starts to become a really cool thing. Wait, I can literally have my money work for me, grow for me. I don't have to lift a finger. All I have to do is continue feeding this thing. You kind of, the deeper you get into the investing thing and the more that it starts to click, I think the less that the discretionary things start to matter.
Yeah.
You'll just naturally come to find ways that you can cut back, or you find that you don't need as much of the material things as maybe you thought you did before. Or you find I can live without this. This is I don't need to spend $100 on this. It's probably better off buying another share and a half of SCHD.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I've gone on such a tangent at this point. I forgot what the original question was, but I think
No.
it was about just how much should you set aside. I
Mhm.
think as much as you can is
Yeah.
probably the short answer. Which
So no, I love that. What about like what are you like? What is your number? I guess. What would you say is your number of? Hey, this is what financial freedom is when I have $10,000 a month in dividend payouts or like that passive income.
mhm.
What would you say is your target?
I don't personally have a specific number in mind. If I had to put a number on it, I would say if and feel like I'm in a unique position because of what I do for my job, making these YouTube videos,
Mm.
which admittedly feels almost like being semi-retired. I have the freedom to do, and I'm so fortunate. I have the freedom to come and go as I please and do what I want when I want to do it, which is one of the reasons I wanted to have this channel and do this and invest more. And so I don't feel like I would need as much to kind of to feel like I can ease off a little bit, if that makes sense. Just because I know either way, I'm still going to continue doing what I do because I love it.
Mhm.
Um, but dude, I'll tell you what, I would be so stoked if I could bring in 2,000, maybe 2,500 bucks a month in dividends. Um, I think that would be huge. But having said that, the general rule of thumb for financial freedom is technically you're at financial freedom when your passive income is greater than your monthly expenses.
Yep.
So as long as you're able to cover that, it um really takes away the necessity of your job. You kind of don't really need to work anymore if you don't want to. But this is where it comes back to budgeting and being able to keep your expenses low, because the lower you can keep those expenses, the sooner you can reach financial freedom. And I'm sure you've talked about this before. You're certainly familiar with it. Avoiding that lifestyle inflation, that lifestyle creep. That's huge.
Yeah. No, that is huge, honestly. I That's one thing that I've had to watch out for in my life. My wife and I, we both work, and
Mm.
kind of as we both, get promoted or whatever, get better jobs, we've definitely lived a more comfortable life. But we've kind of like upped everything. We're like, the more we save and the more we invest, but also we have a little bit more of an expensive life. But it's hard not to,
Yeah.
because you start then hanging out with people who are kind of in a different income bracket as well, and then like they'll naturally go out more or spend more money at dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
So it is a scary thing that you really have to monitor.
And having said that, I don't I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing either. I know I just went on this tangent about not spending money, but I also don't think that's a bad thing either because number one, everyone has different goals. So if you are fine, which a lot of people are, if you're fine kind of doing the whole traditional thing, just working till, mid 60s and then retiring, that's fine. I think that gives you so much more wiggle room to live life more and it allows for more lifestyle creep, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It really just depends on what your goal is. If you are die hard just looking to reach financial freedom as quick as possible, that's kind of when you need to tighten the belt a little bit. But and I'm sure in your case, you the lifestyle inflation you allow probably is not as great as the extra income that you're making from the promotion. So sure, maybe you have some more expenses, but I'm sure those extra expenses are lesser than the amount that you're making extra, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what else is a truth is you kind of cap out at certain levels of nice things, because like I was at a cheaper gym and now I go to like the gym of my dreams, like the gym I really wanted to go to for like since I moved to New York. But it's, it gets incrementally more expensive by a couple bucks each year, but that doesn't really matter. So the more money that we make, it's not like the gym is getting that much more expensive, or I'm going to an even nicer gym, or getting a personal trainer or whatever. So
Right.
some of
I th-
these things do tap out, and you're like, okay, that's kind of at its high point.
yeah, and I think having said all of this, the issue is once again, this is I'm going to tie it back to working out. The issue is when it comes to budgeting and spending that money is um spending money on the discretionary things before taking care of business. It's having your dessert before your broccoli.
Yeah.
It's going to get In-N-Out Burger before you hit the gym, and instead of hitting the gym. Like for example, I've got none of my friends invest. I started my channel. One of the reasons I started my channel because I got super into this stuff. I was hoping maybe if I just make these videos, my friends like will watch them and kind of get psyched on it too, which didn't happen by the way. But one of my friends who I'll talk to about this investing stuff every once in a while. And I'll always, not always, but sometimes I'll be like, dude, you should just start. You just got to start. It's so easy. I'll help you set it up, whatever. No, because I don't want to, excuse A, excuse B, excuse C. Okay, whatever. But then, goes out and buys a brand new Lexus.
Hmm.
So I think, I think that's where it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is rough. I guess one thing that I love about your channel as well, and I'm curious about, is your transparency. You're super transparent about the stocks that you're buying, what your portfolio looks like. Where did that come from? And do you think at any point that transparency level will stop where you're like, okay, this is getting too big, or I don't know, just I guess where did that come from?
Um, so I don't really know exactly where it came from. I've never seen any reason to be any other way. There's some people you'll hear this talked about sometimes when it comes to like creators on YouTube or talking about this finance stuff, especially those who show their portfolio. They'll only show the wins, they'll never show the losses.
Mhm.
But like I just did a live stream last night talking about the five biggest losers in my portfolio, and I'm all down over 20% on all of them. But I don't see what the big deal is. I don't see why that's such a bad thing to talk about. Um, I think in my case, realistically, dude, I've only been doing this, like I said, I've only been doing this for like 3 years.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't have a background in this stuff at all. There's so many people out there who know so much more about investing than I do. But I
Yeah.
love this stuff. I'm very interested in it, and that's why I have a channel talking about it. I don't I don't ever want to come across as someone who has it all figured out or knows what they're doing or has some sort of magic formula to like help you get rich overnight. Just like there's no personal trainer out there that's going to get you a six pack in a week. I just there's too many parallels, man. I'm sorry. I'm
No,
sorry. I hate,
I
but,
mean, I'm big into those types of parallels. The working out parallel works for me. So hopefully
cool.
someone watching this, it works for them.
Yeah. But, so I'm not kidding myself. I'm not someone who knows all what they're doing. So, um, really my main goal with my channel is to get people excited about it. And hopefully from watching what I'm doing, others will realize, hey, if this guy with no background, no experience can start doing it, then I can start doing this too. Because I think that's something that keeps people out of the market is they're intimidated. They think they're gonna invest in something and it's all gonna go down,
Yeah.
or they're gonna lose all their money. Um, and so hopefully just by me showing the good and the bad, and also over a long period of time, the story there is there's ups and there's downs, just like any story. Um, but over a long period of time, there's going to be more ups and more downs, and overall, it's going to be a happy ending. And one thing I try and really hone in on with this style of investing, and also with my videos, is, and this is one thing I love about dividend investing specifically, it's less tied to the unpredictable movements of the market. Because no one can predict what's going to happen. No one on any given day, whether it's going to go up or down, no one ever knows. Um, but the dividend, the cash flow is not tied to that at all. Whether the market's up or down, you're still going to get that dividend payment unless something's wrong with the company, obviously. But that aside, it doesn't affect the cash flow. And so, having said that, reaching financial freedom and doing this over a long period of time, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
And so, kind of tying it all together, hopefully just by being able to show what I'm doing, because that's really all I have to offer, because I'm not a financial expert. I'm not someone who's been doing this for decades. I'm not the next Warren Buffett or anything. So all I really have to offer to get people excited and get people interested is just by showing what I'm doing and showing, yeah, there's some good, there's some bad, but it's still a really fun and exciting thing. And over a long period of time, you're gonna make some crazy progress. When I started my videos, I was making less than $20 a month in dividend income, and now just a few years later, it's getting close to being $200 a month. And that's, sure, it's had its ups and downs along the way. I'm not kidding anyone thinking that I've made the right move every single time. But still, even in the face of the bad trades, the 5 stocks where I'm down over 20%, um, things are still progressing. Things are still going up and up, and we're still doing good. We're doing better than we were this time last month and this time last year,
Mhm.
and things are going to keep improving. Things are going to look even better this time next year than they do today, and it's only because of that consistency, and it's because of the willingness to keep investing. You can't here's another parallel. You can't walk into the gym on day one and just bench press 225. You have to start with the bar, and then you build it from there, brick by brick by brick, and you have to pay your dues. And you're not going to do every set successfully. There's going to be sets where you don't hit the number of reps you intend to, um, but you'll get there eventually. You just have to keep trying and keep doing it. And the same is true with investing. And so, that's why I don't mind the transparency, because I don't know. I just want to keep it real. I'm not, like I said, I'm not someone who has it all figured out, but if I can show what I'm doing, both the good and the bad, and it still gets people excited and makes them know it's okay if stocks go down. It's okay if things don't always go up, because you'll be okay in the grand scheme of things. It's fine. And so, I like being able to show that, and I like being able to get people excited about this, and hope that someone who is that 16-year-old sees it and starts doing it when they should, instead of waiting till they're much older. Excuse me. Sorry for the tangent.
No, I loved it.
If you
I
haven't
love it.
noticed already, I'm pretty long-winded.
I am too. That's some of the feedback I get from my wife. She's like, you probably could have said that in 5 words instead of 2 minutes.
Yeah, seriously.
So I'm curious. I mean, in that tangent, I loved it because you kind of touched on this. But what do you make of the current economy and all the talk of, there's like a lot of confusing talk right now where like unemployment is at a super low. but that we're looking at a potentially huge recession coming up, or we're already in it. What do you make of the current market, and what is going to be your strategy for investing over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah. So I don't really know what to make of the current market because I I feel like I hear so much on both sides of people saying, people predicting a ton of doom. I mean, Robert Kiyosaki he's someone who does that a lot too. He always talks about how the market's going to crash or stuff like that. But then on the other hand, you hear people saying it's fine, things aren't as bad as everyone says it is, and I don't know. Like I said, just no one, especially someone like myself who's still very novice at a lot of this stuff. I don't know exactly what to make of it. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't really predict what's going to come next. Um, but having said that, my strategy doesn't change. I'm still going to buy stocks every week and try and invest in what I think are good companies. And I think that's the only thing you can really control as an investor is what you choose to invest in. And so I'm just going to keep on doing my thing. And I know in the grand scheme of things, it's all going to work out, no matter what's going on with the banking crisis or who's attacking who. This stuff has happened before, and it's always grown to be bigger. The stock market, I mean, has always grown to be bigger than it was before all of it. So it'll be fine. And I
Yeah,
think once again, this is just the constant back and forth, the constant news is another something that I think freaks people out or makes them want to try and, well, let me wait till this blows over, or let me wait to see if things really do crash because then I can buy stocks a lot cheaper. But and I think Peter Lynch even said this, bringing him up again. He said something like more money is lost in waiting for a correction than is actually lost in a correction. Does that make sense?
explain it.
It essentially means don't try and time the market. Don't necessarily wait for things to happen because it never play out the way that everyone's predicting it might. More money is lost in waiting for the big event to happen and the mark that will cause the market to crash than is lost in the market actually crashing. So the solution, just start investing. Just don't wait. Don't try and time things. Just be consistent and over a long period of time. Because remember, we're not getting rich overnight here. We're talking a matter of 20, 15, 20, 30 years. It's actually, you start today, it's something you'll do the rest of your life. So in the grand scheme of things, you'll be fine. Just get started.
Yeah, no. So, what about? It sounds like the majority of dividend ETFs or stocks that you invest in are pretty safe bets. What's like the riskiest investment you've done in the stock market?
Um, so if we're just talking dividend stocks, I would say the few that I have in my portfolio right now that I would say are at the most risk would be like Intel. I've lost a lot of money on Intel. Um, 3M is another one that I've lost a lot of money on, who is a dividend king, which for those of you who don't know, a dividend king is a company that has grown their dividend payments every single year for at least 50 consecutive years. So 3M has grown their dividend every year for I think 65 straight years. And sometimes that's an indicator that if a company is able to sustain and grow those dividend payments for a long period of time, they're often looked at as being more sustainable sustainable, reliable companies to invest in. Um, but 3M has been going through a couple lawsuits right now that has really hurt the company, really hurt the stock price, really hurt the company, could potentially hurt the company even more. So that's a big risk. Intel is going through a huge turnaround right now. We don't have to get into all that, but that's one that could not work out in my favor very well. JEPI, which is a covered call ETF, I don't know that I feel a lot of risk necessarily with this fund, but it's a high yielding fund with a dividend yield of I think over 11% right now, maybe 10%, somewhere in there, double digits for sure. Um, it's only been around for a few years, so the long-term performance of a fund like this is yet to be seen. So there's some risk involved with that. But otherwise, I think I'm in a pretty good place with my portfolio. For the most part, it's household names like Procter and Gamble, it's one of my biggest positions, who makes like Crest toothpaste, Dawn dish soap, Tide laundry detergent. You think of any sort of a brand, like consumer packaged goods brand like that you keep around the house, chances are that Procter and Gamble owns it. Ton of soap, ton of detergent, paper towels, I think, toilet paper, stuff like that. A lot of the necessities. Starbucks is my biggest position. I don't think Starbucks is going anywhere anytime soon.
Mhm.
Coca-Cola, Lowe's. So for the majority of my portfolio, the bulk of my portfolio is in companies like that.
Yeah,
So
no,
I
that
feel
makes
okay.
sense. What goes into your due diligence when you are looking at companies to invest in?
So it depends on the company. Every type of company is going to have its little nuances. Like you look at a real estate investment trust differently than you would look at a company a little bit, just different metrics. I mean, you look at it a little bit differently than you might look at something like a Coca-Cola. If you look at a business development company, which it is a different company than a real estate investment trust or a company like Coca-Cola, you look at that a little bit differently. But if I'm looking at a company like Procter and Gamble or Coca-Cola or Starbucks, a few things that I want to see are at least steady revenue. It doesn't have to be super aggressive revenue growth, but if revenue over time is trending up and their sales are increasing, that's one of the most important things I look for. One of the first places I start, actually, if I'm looking at the financials. I also want to see that's called the top line. The bottom line, the earnings per share, I want to see that trending upward as well. I mean, that can kind of do this, go up and down over the years, but I want to see that trending upwards. For dividend investors, one of the most important metrics is free cash flow, um, which is what companies use to pay the dividend. And you want to see that the company consistently is able to cover their dividend with the free cash flow. Ideally, free cash flow, it's awesome to see free cash flow going up over time as well. Um, it's not always a necessity, though. You mainly want to see that the company has enough free cash flow consistently to cover that dividend. If the company's not bringing in free cash flow, they're at some point they're not going to be able to pay the dividend. And if they consistently aren't covering that dividend with the free cash flow, they have to take on additional debt to keep the dividend going, which is something you don't want. And that's kind of the last thing I'll look for. I want to see, I mean, no debt is fantastic, or negative net debt, which means they have more cash on their balance sheet, more cash in the bank than they have debt outstanding. If you see that, that's great. But even so, if you see that I mean, pretty much every company has debt, but if they're able to, if they wanted to pay down that debt or get rid of it, um, using their free cash flow in a matter of a handful of years, that's a pretty good indicator too, I think. So in general, you want to see growing revenue, you want to see growing earnings, you want to see free cash flow, steady free cash flow, and you don't want to see too much debt. If you were looking at the financials, those are the things I look for. And for those of you because I didn't know anything about reading financial statements, I'm still learning when I first started. But one thing that's really helped me is this book right here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's probably not going to focus, but the book is called Warren Buffett and the Interpretation of Financial Statements. You can buy it on Amazon for maybe like $12. The author is Mary Buffett, who was, I think, Warren's ex-daughter-in-law or something like that. And this other guy, David Clark. And a really good book I'd recommend for anyone who wants to learn more about financial statements. It's taught me a lot, and it's a good thing to refer to. But when analyzing a company's financials, those are kind of the high level things I look for. Dividend stats, couple of quick stats. For a normal company, you want to see a lower payout ratio. Kind of the rule of thumb that we use is below 60%. And the payout ratio is the percentage of a company's earnings that they're paying out to the dividend. And the formula is earnings per share divided by dividend per share. So if they're paying out less than 60% of their earnings to the dividend, they have a less than 60% payout ratio. That's a pretty good sign. If you find a company that's even below like 30%, you're in a great spot. And there's a lot of companies out there that offer that. Another thing you want to look for, so as far as dividend yield and dividend growth, that will kind of depend on what your investment time horizon is. If you're have a long-term time horizon, you've got a lot of time to invest before you can retire, basically. It's okay to find a company with a lower yield, maybe 1, 2, 3%, but has a higher 5-year growth rate, which is the amount that they're growing the dividend every year. So it's really sweet to see dividend growth rates in the double digits. If you're looking for a high growth dividend stock, that's kind of where I like to start. And then obviously years of the dividend growth history is something that we like to look at too. But remember, going back to what we were talking about with 3M, it's not always an indicator that the company um, is in great shape.
Mhm.
It's good for the dividend, but it's not always the end all be all to determine the um, safety of the company.
Yeah. So have you ever bought into a like I recently, and I'll make a video about it, but I bought into ZIM, which is
Mhm.
a, have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just Googled, I was like, what are some of the highest paying dividend stocks? And it's an Israeli shipping company, and they have like an insanely high dividend payout. And
Mhm.
I knew it was a big risk. So I didn't put a ton of money into it, so I just wanted to see what would happen.
Mhm.
But so far, it's been great. The dividend payouts were pretty big since the stock price has dropped a bit, but I think it's leveled out now to a point where hopefully it can stay there. But have you ever done that? I guess, have you ever gone after like something you're like, let's just see how this goes? Or you're much more calculated than that?
I was kind of like that with Jeppy, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, I was kind of like that with Jeppy. I didn't put a lot of money into it. I still have it. It's a really small position of mine, but um, yeah, I was like, you know what? This one's been hyped up quite a bit. I understand how it works, um, but still, it's only been around for a couple years, so really anything could happen. But anyway, pays a
Mhm.
nice monthly dividend. Let's just see what happens, and it's been fine so far. Um, I don't know if it's one I'll keep forever, but yeah, I kind of took a gamble on that one. Um, and sometimes it works out. I've actually kind of been I've made a couple videos talking against Zim, saying probably stay away from it, especially for the average investor, someone who's kind of new to this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but hey, man, sometimes it works out.
Yeah. So far, so good. Obviously, we'll see what happens. What, like anything else? Where can the people find you, learn more about you? I know you just launched your Patreon. Congratulations. I can link to that below as part of this. But yeah, just kind of where can the people find you?
Yeah, so the easiest place to find me is just on YouTube. If you just search Ryne or search Ryne Williams, I think I'm the first one that pops up. I'd love for you guys to check out my videos. Come hang out with me. Join the Dividend Happy Hour every Friday night, 5 p.m. Pacific. It's just a weekly live stream we have. It's a lot of fun. Um, and if you like the videos, then I think you'll also like the newsletter. Which if you go watch one of my videos, the newsletter is always linked in the descriptions. But I would say best place to start is on YouTube for sure.
Cool, man. Hey, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, man. And we got to have you on the Dividend Happy Hour sometime. That'd be fun.
Oh, I'd love it, man. Just let me know.
All right.
I'll be there.